It's chaos. There's a lot going on here, but it sounds like somebody that was very angry did something very bad.
A Texas man already charged with one murder, now a person of interest in another woman's disappearance. This after the missing woman's mother received a disturbing phone call asking for ransom as her daughter can be heard screaming that she's been deformed from the background.
That's like the true nightmare phone call to hear that.
Investigators now say he left behind some stark evidence in the crimes.
From his perspective, he was probably taking a photo to so he could kind of relive the excitement of what he was doing to this person.
Meanwhile, the investigation now shedding light on the suspect's lengthy criminal past.
Because it sounds like this guy had a history and a need to commit these kind of atrocious activities.
On May 3rd, investigators in Houston, Texas found the body of 24-year-old Megan Rouse. Police officers were responding to an unrelated call when they found Megan's body in a pool of blood. She'd been badly beaten and shot multiple times. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Surveillance video showed a dark sedan in the area at the time of the murder. Investigators later determined it was a Chevy Malibu and the driver, 39-year-old Quan Flowers. Investigators also say data from Google Maps put Flowers at the scene of Megan's murder, and now he's charged in her death. To understand the investigation that led to Flowers' arrest and where the case is going from here, I reached out to retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt. Investigators quickly determined that they had a suspect in mind, Quan Flowers. How do you think that they came up with that? By looking through his phone, surveillance video? How would that have worked?
Well, it sounds like it was probably phone situation again. Like we've talked about many times, that there was some sort of connection between them, and they looked at her last group of calls and saw there was a connection to this guy, and then they just did a classic criminal investigation and saw that he might even have a history of this kind of behavior. So they went out and interviewed him, and they probably got him to tell the story.
Investigators also used evidence collected at the crime scene to bolster their case against Flowers. So the crime scene has these 5 bullet shells, and then they connect it to Flowers' phone. He has photos of these bullets on his phone. It kind of matches up. Is that pretty strong evidence?
That's the classic smoking gun right there. See the bullets, specifically what they were looking for, and to find it on the phone, that make that connection. Yeah, I mean that truly is the new digital smoking gun.
Why would a suspect have taken photos of bullets that would then be used in some sort of crime? Does that even make sense?
Well, nothing that this guy did made sense, but from his perspective, he was probably taking a photo to so he could kind of relive the excitement of what he was doing to this person, and be able to see that photo and say, "Oh, hi," to kind of have another gratuitous moment over what he did to this person, which was basically sadistic and horrible.
These bullets proved to be an important piece of evidence in the case against Flowers. Ballistic tests of the shell casings found at Megan's crime scene determined they were related to 2 other shootings in the area that happened on March 29th and April 4th. Colin says it's too early to tell whether Flowers attempted to use deadly force in those cases.
That's a speculation. Obviously he's some sort of career criminal where he was had some sort of crime spree where he was going out to achieve some certain objectives. And not knowing more details about the case, I can't really speculate on what the motive was for killing these people. But there appears to be some sort of personal connection between him and them, and it doesn't appear to be random.
I just want to take a super quick break from the case of Quan Flowers to talk about the sponsor of this news package, truthfinder.com. Truthfinder is one of the largest public records search services in the world. Here's how it works. Go to their website, truthfinder.com, and say, for instance, you have a date. Let's say you're going on a date with me. You type in my name, and within minutes, you get access to reports that include things like phone numbers, addresses, and associates, but also any previous arrests and criminal convictions. This goes without saying, but my Truthfinder record is sparkling clean. So you can get 50% off confidential background reports at truthfinder.com/LCnews. We do know of at least one person involved in those other shootings, a girl who said she was lured into Flowers' car. The girl is under 18 years old, so her name hasn't been released publicly. It was this underage girl who said she was picked up by Quan Flowers, got in his car, he coerced her to come inside, and then attempted to sexually assault her. Is she someone that investigators would seek out and try to get more information from?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because number one, there might be a crime that they can pin on him in terms of what he did to her, and secondly, they're going to get more background on his behavior, what he acts like, where he goes, and what he's driving, and basically have more pieces to the puzzle to put this thing together to ensure that he never goes free on the streets again.
I'm wondering, should investigators have connected the dots sooner? Should they have said, okay, this is Quan Flowers, he's our suspect, and could that have prevented the murder that was on May 3rd?
Well, I don't ever second guess law enforcement. We don't know what was going on or what their actions were going happening at the time. We don't have all the information on the face. We always want law enforcement to act faster to prevent violent crime, but they're reacting to the data that's in front of them, and I'm sure they did absolutely the best they could with the information that they had.
But these aren't the only cases Flowers is apparently involved in. Officials say he's a person of interest in the disappearance of 29-year-old Kalie Goodwin, who was reported missing on April 23rd. She went missing from Baytown, Texas, about 40 minutes east of Houston. It was Kalie's mom who contacted police after receiving a disturbing phone call. She says someone called her demanding a ransom payment as she heard her daughter scream, quote, "Mama, my face is deformed." And this person on the other end of the line was asking for $600, saying that they have her daughter and she could hear her daughter in the background. First of all, to me, that $600, it seems very low. It seems kind of strange that somebody would ask about that. What do you make of the ransom call aspect?
It sounds like it wasn't necessarily the objective of the call wasn't necessarily a ransom. It was more of just getting the information to the mother. Because if it was a true ransom, it would have been a lot more, 100,000, $1 million. But on the flip side, though, in his mind, he just might have been just said, well, I just want $600, and not understanding the value of what he had per se. Or they at that point it might not have been his mind a ransom call. It might have just, like I said, just some information he wanted to share with the mother of his potential victim.
Also, in this phone call, apparently the mother could hear her daughter in the back being roughed up, being beaten, and apparently she said that her face is being deformed. This is what the mother overheard. What are your reactions to that?
Well, as a father, I'm just that's like the true nightmare phone call to hear that, and to hear her say something or a daughter say something like that. So obviously it was panic inducing into the mother, and then it's obviously she heard some sort of violent behavior being actuated on her daughter. So I think that call, or her as a witness, will be key in putting more charges on the subject as this thing goes forward.
Kalie's mom didn't hand over the $600 and instead sent only $1 via Cash App. Investigators quickly determined the other user is the girlfriend of Quan Flowers. When questioned about Kalie's disappearance, Flower told investigators he picked her up on April 21st under the direction of an unknown male. He told detectives that at the time, Kalie was, quote, still in one piece. This is kind of interesting because when investigators spoke to Quan Flowers, the suspect, he actually admitted that he was with Goodwin before she disappeared, but there have been no charges filed. Why may that be?
Well, they just don't have enough evidence right now to first of all, they don't have the body to determine that there was a crime committed. Right now, she's just missing. The second thing is, when they do find the body, they do have to find somewhat more of a connection than just the fact that he was with her. And I'm sure they're probably leaning on him once again, looking at his cell phone to see if there's any clue to where they can find her, either alive or a body. And then at that point, then they'll be able to find that evidence to connect him to a violent crime if one occurred.
So, what kind of evidence would investigators need for Flowers to be charged in Kalie's disappearance?
Well, they already have him saying that connecting himself with this person in terms of he saw her last. The next thing, they're going to look at physical evidence on the body to see if there's any of his DNA on the body at all, and then the state of the body, how it would occur. And then if they get lucky, they may find her cell phone to see if there's more connections between him and her, as well as speaking with him if he hasn't lawyered up, so to speak, to see if he's willing to give more information about what he did or did not do.
Unfortunately, this is a story that we talk about often where somebody goes missing, a body is found, etc. We've talked about it several times. But in this case, what do you think the likelihood that she is found safe is?
Well, after 72 hours, it goes down. The data says it goes down dramatically. So if you don't find the person within that 72 hours, the percentages are come down to single digits. So with that, just based upon the data of these of the studies that have done, it's unlikely that she'll be found alive. Unfortunately, now it's a matter of going out and finding the body or the person. Hopefully, she is still alive, and to kind of piece this thing together. I think basically for the missing person, I'm sure they have search parties out. They're looking at her timeline, and then they're trying to find either her or her body. And I'm sure law enforcement is leaning in on this, especially with all the media attention it's getting right now.
Colin says that media attention could be a tactic brought on by investigators.
Absolutely. They're trying to generate more leads, especially for the missing victim. And then as well as they're going to look at his travel patterns to see if he's been in Houston for the last year, 2 year, 5 years, to make more connections to potentially other crimes. But the notoriety or the media is a very effective tool for law enforcement to get more leads and to solve crimes.
And it's possible Flowers is attached to additional crimes. And since he's been arrested this time, news of his past arrest have come to light. So way back in 2004, he was arrested in South Carolina and charged with murder. It was never prosecuted, but he had previously been charged with murder. Is that a red flag?
Absolutely. So that's the one that they knew about. There might be more out there that they don't know about. And as they dig deeper into his history, as well as with the DNA technology, that they're likely to connect him to more crimes, because it sounds like this guy had a history and a need to commit these kind of atrocious activities.
When we're looking into his past, obviously he's committed several other crimes that he's been convicted of, or at least alleged against him. There could be additional ones in the recent past. How would investigators go about determining whether there are additional crimes or more victims?
Well, there's a system with the FBI called VICAT, and basically it tracks unsolved violent crime throughout the country. So they'll likely dig into that system or reach out to the FBI to see if his behaviors match the modus or the motive or the modo operandi of other crimes that are in this database, as well as they'll use his DNA. They'll run it through the state system as well as the national system to see if there's any links. And then the fact that this case is getting some notoriety, they may end up getting some phone calls from some law enforcement agencies talking about crimes that they have that are unsolved that he might be good for.
So we know that Flowers has a criminal past, but could he be a serial killer?
Well, that's a somewhat of a jump. I mean, we have to kind of see how many more victims that are connected with him. But the fact that he has such a long history of violent crime, it might not just be a serial killer. It might just be that he's in positions where he doesn't have impulse control, and he's actually just reacting to whatever the environment is in a violent manner.
Moving forward, I asked Colin what he thinks is ahead in the case. What do you think the likelihood is that more charges could come, whether it's in this kidnapping case or in other unrelated cases?
Well, based upon his criminal history and then the behavior right now, it's likely that there's going to be more charges and potentially more victims found, because it sounds like this is somebody that has zero impulse control at the very minimum, and potentially he may like you said, might have predilection or a leaning towards being a serial killer or a serial criminal.
Again, right now, Flowers only faces charges in the murder of Megan Rouse. He's being held on that charge without bond. Anyone with more information in the disappearance of Kalie Goodwin is asked to contact the Baytown Police Department. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Kaci Gillespie.